Hi, so tonight I'm going to talk about vitamin D. It's another nutrient that sometimes is an issue in a vegan diet. Now, obviously, if you get plenty of sunshine in your life, it's not going to be an issue, and that's the best way to get vitamin D. But in the event that you live someplace that is very, very cloudy all the time, which is kind of how it was when I lived in Washington State. It was beautiful for 2 or 3 months of the year, and then it's almost like constantly gray and drizzly or rainy the other 9 or 10 months. So someplace like that, you may have to depend more on your food for vitamin D because you won't be getting enough sunlight exposure. Or maybe you may have like some type of job where you work all night and sleep all day and you're not out in the sun hardly ever. Or you're like goth and purposely just don't go out in the sunlight hardly ever. Or it could even be the case that maybe you're a type of race that has high like melanin levels in the skin because where your ancestors came from was super super sunny, so it was like the body's adaptations to perfectly suit you to the environment, and now you're in a completely different environment, and so you don't absorb nearly as much light through your skin as lighter skinned people up in that same environment. Regardless, in any of those cases, you're going to have to switch to your diet instead of sunlight. So this obviously isn't an issue for me personally, since I am a rather pale skinned human living in Maui. I probably get too much sun for my own good. But so majority of vitamin D sources in a vegan diet are basically going to be like fortified vegan foods, or like some type of vegan friendly supplement. Like most of the time these come from certain mushrooms that don't normally have high vitamin D levels, but when they're put out in the sun, for some reason they absorb it really well, and then they do produce a lot of vitamin D. So that's one source. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about vitamin D. It basically is a nutrient that enhances intestinal absorption of calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphate, and zinc. So it's not that vitamin D per se does a lot in and of its own, but it enables your body to absorb these 5 different minerals that are super important to us. You've already heard me talk about zinc, iron, and calcium. So zinc is good for immunity, health, and iron is really good for blood formation, and calcium is great for bone density and bone health, bone strength. So obviously, if vitamin D helps your intestines absorb these minerals better, it's in your best interest to make sure you have enough of it in your system. So here on this vegetarian website, he says, most of the vitamin D in our diets comes from fortified foods. These include cereals, juices, margarines, and dairy products. If you're following a vegan diet, most of these foods are off limits. In addition, the vitamin D that is used in supplements and fortified foods is typically derived from animal sources. Despite these challenges, you can meet your body's vitamin D needs by eating dairy alternatives, taking vegan-friendly supplements, and receiving regular exposure to the sun. So, like I said, the sun is the best source, because if you get good exposure to the sun, your body makes its own vitamin D, and you can never like overdose from that, because vitamin D, I believe, is a fat-soluble vitamin. So, like, normally water-soluble vitamins aren't an issue with overdosing because water can flush them out of your system. So if you have too much, your body just flushes them out and you're good to go. But fat-soluble vitamins can like tend to store in your liver or other places, and you can get toxic toxic I can't pronounce toxicity for some reason, but you can get that if you have too much in your system, and that's not good. But like some of these, it's said you can actually take pretty high dosages before you get to that level, and I think the biggest issue would be not having enough instead of too much, unless you're just really going overboard. So if you're vegan, you're going to want either fortified foods, vegan friendly vitamin D supplements, or those mushrooms I was talking about earlier. They I'll just read this section. Plants and vegetables naturally contain little, if at all, any vitamin D. Although mushrooms are not an exception to this, they contain high levels of ergosterol. This compound is a precursor to ergocalciferol. Yeah, aren't these words just great? Like, why can't they make them more simple? Or vitamin D2. Exposing mushrooms to UVB rays dramatically increases their vitamin D levels from less than 1 microgram per 100 grams to 491 micrograms per 100 grams. Well, that's a pretty insane increase, right? That's like almost 500 times as much. These UV irradiated mushrooms are equivalent to vitamin D supplements in their ability to increase your vitamin D levels. However, as most commercial varieties are at this time grown without exposure to UVB, you should not rely on mushrooms as a source of vitamin D. So basically, like, I don't know, like, go pick your own mushrooms in a place that's sunny, but a lot of times they tend to grow in forests and stuff where it's not sunny. So maybe pick some and replant them somewhere sunny and let them absorb some sunlight, or else take one of these other routes like the fortified foods or the supplements, or just get your sunlight. I think the sunlight's the easiest and best way, but if that's not an option, then try to get some enriched vegan foods that have plenty of vitamin D so that your body's capable of absorbing the calcium and iron and zinc and magnesium, all the things that you need. So that's all I got to say on that. Hopefully it was helpful to you.